he has been my personal coach. We all have coaches. We all have people in our lives that we look up to. And Mark has been someone that I have always been able to rely on. And I think of Luke, my son, when I think of this one, because my coaching calls with Mark kind of go something like this. You know how you had all summer long to prepare for the reading list in school? They gave you 3 months to read those 10 books or 5 books or whatever it was. And every coaching call with Mark goes something like, I did that. He always would find a way to get in the nooks and crannies to find out the things that I didn't accomplish and make me pay for it. What I really like about Mark is he's always pushing me on ways to build the business, on ways to improve what we're providing for all of you. He wants to make sure that what I'm doing is providing the best possible experience to my clients in overall wealth planning, and as a result of that, he knows that what I'm going to do will be successful. But having that overall experience for my clients is what is really important to him. Another big thing for me with Mark is that it's not all about the numbers. As he has been my coach, it's not all about, did you accomplish this, did you accomplish that? It has been, as I share, as we all go through, we have personal experiences, family experiences, that I open up to him about and share with him. And so he always will zero in on that, and that has been the most important part of the things that we talk about. What's going on with this? What's going on with that? In between coaching sessions, he'll send me emails. He wants to talk about those things that are important to me. So all the things I've talked about, Ironman and all his successes in business, this is somebody that I admire and I respect very much. So with that, please help me to welcome Mark Moses as our guest speaker tonight.
Hope you don't mind if I don't stand behind the podium. When you're 4 feet tall, you can't see behind it, so I'm going to stand out here. Michael, thank you. That was a very nice introduction. I have such high regard for you and what you do for your family and your clients. It's my pleasure to be here and share some of my thoughts with you and some of your friends. So, Michael asked me if I would be willing to come out and share this cool topic about building the life that you want. Not the life that somebody else wants for you, but the life that you want to have. So I'm going to share today 9 things that maybe you can take some of these home with you. 9 steps in building the life that you want. So before I do that, it's been an interesting week. So I thought I'd share a little bit about my week I've had so far. Anybody recognize this guy? Lou Ferrigno. So I get to the airport at LAX the other day, and I'm sitting in the lounge, and this big guy walks up, and he looks like he's hurting. And I said, man, it looks like you're hurting. What's the matter? You look sore. He says, well, I just got both hips replaced. Oh, wow, that sounds painful. So I didn't recognize him at first. Sat there, chatted a little bit. He didn't seem really interested. And then I get on the plane, and there he is. He's my next-door neighbor on the flight over to New York. So we had a good chat. I didn't realize he was deaf, so having a conversation with him was interesting. And at one point, he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, what's that magazine you're reading? Can I read it? I said, sure. I was reading Triathlete magazine. So I gave it to him, and 5 minutes later, he gave it back. I said, well, you didn't like it? He says, well, I don't think it's for me. Better you than me. And so I came out here for, I'm a member of YPO, Young Presidents Organization. We had a chapter retreat here in New York City, and so we did the 9/11 memorial. One of my good buddies was just funded by Steve Case, and we had a little meeting over at his home, and got to enjoy a little fun. I had lunch a couple days ago with this guy who some of you may recognize. Interesting guy, very direct, and fun to be with, our former governor here in New York. And it's not every day you get to go ring the bell at the NASDAQ, so we had the opportunity to go over and ring the closing bell on Monday at the NASDAQ, and that's just fun to do. And so we did all of that, and we enjoyed it, and it was good fun. And then they said, come on outside, we want to take some more photos while you're here. And it's not every day that you're on a building in Times Square. So we were taking photos of ourselves on the building, and all the tourists were taking photos of us taking photos of ourselves on the building. So it's been kind of a nutty week. Anybody recognize this lady? Barbara from Shark Tank. So there she was. Barbara happened to walk in. We had a little chit-chat with Barbara, and she's was working on the show, and it was fun to chat with her. She's just as much fun in person. And then on 9/11, it's really neat being in New York on 9/11, and we actually took out one of the sailboats and went out in the harbor, and it was really interesting looking back upon the city during the day. So I've had a good time I got here Saturday, and it's been good fun so far. Anybody in here 80 yet? Close? Anybody? Close, okay. So several years ago, we went to Panama, and the assignment for our group of guys I was traveling with, it was a group of CEOs, was to prepare our 80th birthday speech. So we were, at the time, all about 40, and we had to deliver to the group our 80th birthday speech. We fortunately got to have a couple cocktails first, and then everybody prepared in advance and delivered to the other guys the speech. What was insightful to me about that was not one of the 9 guys mentioned their business. And many of us are so passionate all the time about what we do every day and the impact that we're having on the world with our businesses, but nobody mentioned it. It was all about their friends, their family, the experiences that they had traveling the world, what they did to make a difference, but not about their business. Today, I coach CEOs from all over the world, and I've been a member of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for 18 years, and YPO for a dozen years, Young Presidents Organization. And what I have found is many people aren't living the life that they truly want. They're going through the motions, they're doing what they have to, but aren't really thrilled about the life that they're living. And when Michael asked me, would you be willing to talk about what it is you've learned in building, you got a pretty cool life, come share with us what it is, what we can learn in building the life that we want. So the Huffington Post earlier this year put out a little article on the top 5 regrets of people that were dying. They were dying within the next 3 to 12 weeks. Number 1 was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I wish that I had let myself be happier. So I grew up in this small town in Canada. It was called Sudbury. Anybody been there? Wow. Wow. Well, welcome. So I grew up in Sudbury. It's a little mining town, and I went to college in Waterloo, Ontario, at Wilfrid Laurier University, And this is what I remember as a kid growing up. This was my life. The best gift my dad ever gave me was a snowblower. And at one point, I had to make a choice. So the first step in building the life that you want is you get to choose what life you want to have. You get to build the life that you want. You do. So, for me, I packed up my U-Haul. That was my cool car back in the 80s. And I started driving south. Eventually, I got to Amarillo, Texas, and turned right. And eventually, I saw this sign as I rolled into California. So I've been in Newport Beach ever since. That was the first big decision that I chose to make. This is my son, Mason. So I got to California. I built this really cool company. In 4 years, I had 3,000 employees. I sold it. I built another company. We built that thing up. And Michael mentioned some of the credentials and all that stuff, and we're making lots of money and lots of people and offices all over the country. But one day something real happened. My son, Mason, had a brain tumor. It gave me tremendous perspective on life. I used to work my butt off. I would get in at 5:30 in the morning, and I would go home at 9 o'clock at night. Many can probably relate to what that's like. But that gave me tremendous perspective. Mason went through brain surgery the next day to remove a tumor, and then he had complications called hydrocephalus, water on the brain. We went through that. They did a second surgery, and then finally we went through a year and a half of rehab. And then Mason survived, and he's doing terrific today. He was 4 then. He's 11 today. He ran his first half marathon this year in May. Pretty cool for an 11-year-old. And for those of you that have run races, 2.5 hours for a little squirt, not so bad. So he's doing great. It got me into what Michael described earlier in Ironman. I was 30 pounds overweight, and I said, if he can survive this, I'm going to raise some money for the Children's Hospital of Orange County. I'm going to make a difference. So anybody in here done Ironman? Adam, you have? No? One guy? Congratulations. Which one? Tough course. Congratulations. So an Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim, and then you get to ride your bike for 112 miles, and then after you finish that, you get to run a marathon, another 26.2 miles, and if you finish, they call you an Ironman, and that was my first crack at the Ironman. It was such an overwhelming experience. What I realized going through that experience was my son had a brain tumor. I had worked my butt off. It gave me and my wife perspective. I loved the feeling of doing an Ironman, and I wasn't loving what I was doing at work anymore. It was just, I was in the mortgage banking business. It was the same. I was tired. I didn't want to do it anymore. So October 13th, I did this race, by the way, August 27th, 2006. I decided I didn't want to do my company anymore, so I sold the business October 13th, 2006. So now I'm out. I was a little lucky or fortuitous on the timing because the meltdown began in 2007. So then I decided I would travel around the world with my family, and we started having a good time. Not that we weren't before, but we decided we're going to exit out, didn't realize the market was going to collapse, and just decided to have some fun. So for the next couple of years, we just had fun. I want to tell you a story about this guy. His name is Mark Harrimans. Mark Harrimans is a Belgian. In 2001, he was one of the greatest athletes in the world. Number 6 at the Hawaii Ironman World Championship. And while training for a race in Spain, he crashed. He broke his back, his neck, and his new seat was a wheelchair. He was very, very demoralized. He contemplated suicide and decided to make a choice. He made the choice to live. He decided he was going to compete again in the Hawaii Ironman, but this time as a wheelchair athlete. Less than a year after his accident, he competed, but he got sick on the swim. After the swim, he quit, and he was demoralized. And he decided he was going to come back again the year after and do it again and compete. And he did. And he won. Good for him. He made that choice. Anybody listen to Steve Jobs' Stanford speech? For you youngsters at the back, Luke, what's your other son's name? Zach, where are you, Zach? I saw you drinking some beers. It's still worth listening to the speech. I love this speech. If you haven't listened to it, Google it. Spend the 15 minutes and listen to his speech. It gives you tremendous perspective from a guy that knew he was going to die. Steve Jobs knew his time was limited. He says, if you know you're going to die, live every day like it's your last. And if you know you're going to die, you have nothing to lose. A tremendous perspective. And Steve Jobs, after being fired in the early days and coming back, good for him, living the life he wanted to, building the products he wanted to change the world. The second thing I want to tell you is pick something that you're truly passionate about. Do you go to work and do you love it? Do you really love it? If you don't, go do something else. View work as getting to do it. You don't got to do it. Go do something that you're totally passionate about and truly, truly enjoy what you do. Oprah, for many, many years, loved her show. She loved doing what she did. And then she didn't, so she stopped. And Warren Buffett, boy, that guy's still going, loving what he does. He's happy doing what he does. He'll probably keep living a long time because he's doing what he loves to do. My dad retired when he was 70. He never loved what he was doing, and he retired. Well, good for him. But he got old really quick because he wasn't really passionate about what he was doing. What? Not then, not now. Steve Jobs, everybody would say, he was extremely passionate about everything that he did. As sick as he was, he couldn't wait to get back to develop and lead new things. And for those that have read his book, we all know he was a pain in the ass. A big pain in the ass. And his employees viewed him as that. And actually, when I read the book, I was frustrated about what an ass he really was. Yet, he was so passionate that he changed the world. And as the iPhone, it was announced today, right? And I think it's coming out on the new iPhone 5, coming out on the 25th, the first launch since Steve Jobs' death. So second thing I learned was be passionate about what you do. And in terms of mastering the art of living, a person who is a master in the art of living makes little distinction between their work and their play, their labor and their leisure, their mind and their body, their education and their recreation, their love and their religion. They hardly know which is which. They simply pursue their vision of excellence and grace in whatever they do, leaving others to decide whether they are working or playing. To them, they are always doing both. I love that. Number 3 is commitment. And pardon all my athletic examples. I'm just an athletic junkie, so bear with me. I get my encouragement through athletics. This is a friend of mine. Her name is Sarah Reinertson. She had her leg amputated when she was 6 years old. The other kids wouldn't play with her, and she wanted to play soccer and could not. As she grew up, she too decided she wanted to be an Ironman. Amazing. She was committed to doing that. She first started running with her prosthetic leg. She then got into triathlon. She then got into the Ironman, and NBC covered her on the Ironman special. And the first time she did it, she failed. And she cried because she didn't get it done. And she came back the year after and got it done and completed the Ironman. So the third point I make is have commitment to what it is that you want to get done. How many recognize this smile? How fun was she at the Olympics at 17 years old, winning 4 gold medals and a bronze with that huge smile? And she wouldn't quit her high school team because she didn't want to let her friends down. What commitment. Anybody recognize these two guys? Rick and Dick Hoyt. Dick is the old man at the back. Well, he's not that old, but he's in his 70s, and he's done hundreds of triathlons and hundreds of races, pushing around his 40-some-year-old son so he too can share the experience and what it feels like to participate in races. The son is very grateful for getting to participate, but his father is more grateful because it's given him purpose and passion in his life. And believe me, it's a huge commitment to do the race without having to carry somebody along. He even swam in the Hawaii Ironman, pulling his son along in a boat. The fourth point I want to make is you got to have vision. Where is it that I want to go? Where is it? What do I want my life to look like? If I could choose what my life would be like, what would it be? If you found out tomorrow you had 1 year left to live, how would you live your life? Would you live it exactly the way you're living it today? How many would live it exactly the way they're living it today? Hands up. One person. Congratulations. Let me change it. If you found out you had 5 years left to live, and you had a definitive date, and you were going to be healthy during that entire 5 years, would you live it exactly the way you're living it today? How many? I know we probably got one hand, right? Thank you. What's your name? Carla. Thank you, Carla. Anybody else? One guy. What's your name? Tony. Live exactly the way he's living it today. What's the matter with the rest of us? Irene? So we get to choose how we're going to live our life and have a vision of our life. What I do with my clients is I ask them this question: where do you want to be 3 years from now? Or think 5 years from now, where do you want to be? What will it take to guarantee you get that done? What are the 3 or 4 things that it will take to guarantee we get that done? Well, what will stand in the way of making that happen? And how will I overcome what's standing in my way? So Michael Phelps, we all have heard a lot about Michael Phelps lately. Michael Phelps went to the last Olympics, not this one, with one goal in mind. What was it? Win 8? Who said that? 8 gold medals. That's right, and that's how many he's got around his neck right there. His vision was to win 8 gold medals. Do you think he just showed up and said, "Oh, I'm Michael Phelps. I just ate my 10,000 calories today as required. You know, I had my little mishap. I smoked a joint over lunch, and what lane do I swim in?" No, I don't think so. I think Michael Phelps said, "I want to win 8 gold medals. I need to build my plan from back to front. I need to pick the events that have the highest probability of winning. I need to be with the teammates that give me the highest probability of winning." And for those that watched the races last time that they showed many times, this time it was very close, right at the wall several times. For me, after doing my first Ironman, I wanted to do the Hawaii Ironman World Championship. And as my friend in the back knows, in order to get to do the Hawaii Ironman World Championship, you got to win an Ironman or place in the top 2 or 3. Sometimes the top 1, depending on the race. So, short, white, Jewish guy, unlikely to happen. So, I decided I would go compete in Austria. They had an event. It was for CEOs only. Or they had the CEO division. They had 6 spots. That's a pretty good field, right? I had just sold my business. I'm out. I'm unemployed. I'm a bum. I'm a full-time triathlete. I cut an hour off my time, but I placed 4th. Out of the 2 spots they had, I didn't get one. Ironman Europe needed some help. I volunteered to go do a little assignment in Europe and help these guys out. At the end of my assignment there, 10 days just giving them input on how to make more money at the races in Europe. It was pretty easy. It was pretty fun. So what could we ever do to repay you? I said, I know. I want to go to Hawaii. So I got invited to go to Hawaii that year. And in 2007, I got to complete the Ironman in Hawaii. I didn't win the right to be there. I was given the right to be there. I then competed again. I placed 2nd in Germany. I placed 1st in Brazil. And I got the opportunity to go 2 more times. So this is kind of what an Ironman looks like. You can see up here, this is a bit of a mess with all your friends, and then you get to bike in the wind, and then you get to run. You get to be really fit, though. And this is my last time in 2010 doing the Ironman there. I then had this new vision. I wanted to break 11 hours for the Ironman. For those that do Ironman, 11 hours is a pretty good time. I built my plan from back to front. I asked my coach, what is it that I need to do to make this happen? And we broke it down, and I trained for each event. And in November last year, I completed the Ironman Arizona, as Michael mentioned, in 10:56. It just so happened at mile 24 and a half, I passed the last guy and won the race, won my division, got the chance to go back. October 13th this year, I'll be at that swim start one more time. How many in here have a bucket list? Few folks, why not, right? What are all the cool things? How many have watched the movie? If you haven't watched the movie, go home and watch it. Firstly, it's fun, but it inspires you to go do some of the cool things you want to do in your life. And these 2 characters were very funny. So let me share a few of the items on my bucket list. So I wanted to bike in Tuscany. Why Tuscany? Oh, it just sounded like awesome. Go drink wine, eat good food, as much as I want, and I'll burn it off biking in the hills of Tuscany. So my wife and I put together this group, and we went to Tuscany a few years ago. And then we decided Provence would be fun too. So a couple years we did Provence, and next month we're taking 20 couples to Sonoma. So just, it was on the list, it happened. Anybody landed on, took the plane in and landed on an aircraft carrier? Nobody caught by the wire? So we had it on the list. So we just applied and got to do it. It's not an expensive event. It was $42 per person. You got to pay for your own food. So we applied. We were accepted. And a few years ago, this is for my YPO friends in the room. This is my YPO forum. And we flew out. The location's classified, so we didn't know where we were going. We knew we were starting in San Diego, and then we landed on this aircraft carrier. It was all good. It was a pretty intense landing, but the catapult on the way out was even more intense. I used to drive by the Goodyear blimp every day on the way into work, so I put it on the bucket list. All of a sudden, an opportunity came up, and because my friends knew it was on my list, I got invited. Share that list with your friends. So I got to ride the Goodyear blimp around LA. This is Mount Whitney. It's the tallest peak in the continental U.S. So some friends said to me, they knew I wanted to climb a mountain, a big mountain. So I had it on the list. So they said, hey, we're climbing this mountain. Want to join us? I had never climbed anything. I said, what do I need? They gave me the checklist. I went down to REI. I bought everything that I needed. I broke my hiking boots in on this hike. All I can say is that was not a good idea. I suffered. Yet, we got the job done. It was a long day. It was cold, but we got to climb that mountain. I want to do an Ironman on every continent. Why? Just because. So I got 2 left. Ironman China, Ironman South Africa are the 2 I have left in the different continents. I also want to run a marathon in every continent. I did the 2500th anniversary of the Athens Marathon a couple years ago. I'm taking my dad and my son to do the Great Wall Marathon in China in May this year. And on the list is the North Pole Marathon and the Antarctica Marathon. Again, why? Just because they're there. I've been on NBC, but I haven't been on the Today Show, so I'd like to be on the Today Show. That's on the list. I'd like to play Augusta, just because. I'd like to climb Mount Kilimanjaro because it's a cool mountain to climb, and I'd like to take my family and nobody dies climbing Kilimanjaro. And I'd like the president, maybe not this president, but maybe another president, pardon me, I forgot where I was. I'd like to be invited to the White House to have dinner with the president because I did something worthy enough that the president would like to invite me out to say thank you for whatever it was that he thought was meaningful or she thought was meaningful that I did. I'd like to visit 100 countries. Why 100? Because, it's just a round number, and these are the countries I've visited so far. I'm adding China to the list later this year. And one of the cool things I've had the opportunity to do that I learned from a friend was take each child away one-on-one every year. So Adam over here and I were chatting about this earlier. This is my daughter, Darian, and since she was 2, or she made me change her doll's diaper in the middle of the night, we have been doing these one-on-one trips together. She's now 13. The game has changed a little bit. She's a little too cool for school now. Yet this was just earlier this year. In July, we went to Banff together, and this was my son, Mason. We did the Ice Hotel in Quebec City, which was, what an amazing experience. We did dog sledding, and we did snowshoeing and snowmobiling, and spent one night sleeping in the ice hotel. It was cool, very cold. It was a neat experience. So being that I'm sharing about what life looks like in the future, I'm going to be 48 soon, and I decided to share with you what my life will look like at 54. So these are pictures that don't mean anything to you, but they mean a tremendous amount to me. This photo here, these are my two little squirts. They had their first surfing lesson in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and they're on here because they will both be in college when I'm 54, and my wife and I will be empty nesters. So here we are in Tuscany, where we were going to go live for that entire year because we don't have little squirts running around the house anymore. A life filled with family. That's my daughter's bat mitzvah earlier this year. A life filled with good friends. Still fit, traveling the world, and making a difference in everything I do, because it makes me feel good. So how do you get to where, if you decide where you want to be 3 years from now or 5 years from now, how do you get there? How do you build that life that you truly want? Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what that life looks like. I just suggest, like really simple, take out a blank sheet of paper and design what you want your life to look like. What does my personal life look like 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 1 year from now? What's it going to take to make that happen? How do I get from A to B? That's not easy. What's going to get in my way, and how can I overcome what's getting in the way? I think you need tremendous focus and discipline. If you really want it, you can go after it and make it happen. Now, being that the Olympics is of late, we all know these 5 girls really wanted to pursue what they did at this prior Olympics. Not without drama, not without some mishaps, not without the star of the show not winning her gold that she was supposed to win, but they won the team gold. Most of them are homeschooled. They give up a lot. I got a 13-year-old. She does 22 hours of gymnastics a week. She placed number 2 in California this year and number 1 last year. All my friends say, what Olympics is she going to? She's not going to any. Number 1, she's way too old already, which it just is what it is. And she's not willing to do what it takes to give up everything else to be one of these gals. I asked her if she's willing to go to, said, Iowa and be coached by Chow. Money's not a big deal to me. It's like, happy to make that happen. Oh no, Dad, I'm not willing to work that hard. It's not what I want to do. Not the life I want to have. Understood. Anybody remember Helen from The Biggest Loser? Here are the stats. You remember Irene? No? Well, you can see the picture here. She looks a little bit different over here. Well, she lost 140 pounds. She was 54.7% body fat. She went from a size 22 to a 2. Wow. That's doing what you want to do. That's focus and discipline. That's building the life that you want to have. Good for her. Anybody know Sister Madonna? Take a good look. These are wrinkles here. How old do you think she is? Don't help me in the Iron Man guy in the back. Take a guess. She's 80. 80 years old. She's the Iron Nun. She started this in her mid-50s. She started running marathons. Then she got into triathlon. She's done hundreds of races since then. In August, late August, just a couple of weeks ago, she is again qualified for the Hawaii Ironman World Championship. She'll be there when I'm there. She's going to do it again at 80. She already has all of the world records. How does she do that? The distance aren't any shorter for her. She has to do the same distance. She has to fight the same wind that younger guys like me get scared that we're going to get blown off the road on our bikes because it's that windy. It's that hot. It's what she wants to do with tremendous focus and discipline. October 13th, we'll see if she can get it done at 80 years old. Let's talk for a moment about number 7, energy. Oh, this is one of the most important. Do the things that give you energy and eliminate the things that deplete your energy. Sounds pretty easy, right? Do the stuff that I like to do and avoid the stuff that I don't want to do. Easy enough? No, why not? Obligatory stuff. I knew somebody was going to say that. So some things you have to do. Do you really? Yeah, you don't have to answer, but it's just perspective. I used to belong to all this stuff, participate in all these groups because I thought it was the right thing to do. All this obligatory stuff. After my son had his brain tumor, I only wanted to do the stuff that gave me energy, the stuff that made me feel good, the stuff where I was making a difference, the stuff that put a smile on my face every day. And I wanted to avoid all the stuff that depleted my energy, the obligatory stuff, the stuff I didn't want to do, the stuff that didn't make me feel good, the stuff that didn't put a smile on my face. I learned to just say no. Maybe it was Nancy Reagan that said that first. But just learn to say no. You don't have to do everything. You get to choose. It's your choice. Do what you want to do. And I think I speak to grade school kids often, and it's fun going in to chat with them, and when they're paying attention. I've learned in building the life that you want, you are who your friends are. And that's never so. Luke, are you listening to this? I'm not picking on you. Well, maybe a little. You are who your friends are. These are my buddies. We travel the world together. They're all CEOs. I made that choice, even though I grew up in this little mining town, to hang out with these guys. These are some of my buddies. The collective weight loss, not counting my little son there. By the way, he's drinking water, not wine. The collective weight loss in that group is 170 pounds. Pretty amazing. This was last summer in Switzerland, the day after all 4 of us completed Ironman Switzerland. 170 pounds of weight loss. I was the ringleader. These guys are clients of mine. They decided that, well, I talked them into it, but they wanted to build a different life. I said I could help you. Here's some more of my clients. Even one of them, this is my good friend, Ben Cohen, who was, well, let's call it way overweight, and he got talked into it with peer pressure, and he too completed a triathlon. From Winnipeg, Canada, he flew out to Los Angeles and completed a triathlon. He says it was like torture, but he loves how it made him feel. And it was only a sprint distance, and this year he signed up for an Olympic distance triathlon because he thinks he's addicted. He likes how he looks. He likes how he feels. Going back to who your friends are, well, you could be like Bill Gates, hangs out with Warren Buffett, and Clooney hangs out with Pitt, and these guys in the orange jumpers hang out with each other, and these gang members hang out with each other. But the point is, you are, for you youngsters in the room, you are who your friends are. This is a buddy of mine. His name is Monish. He decided to buy the lunch with Warren Buffett on eBay. He spent $650,000 for lunch. In this particular case, he bought his friend, but now he and Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they're fast friends. They spend a lot of time hanging together, and he loves it because he learns a tremendous amount from his friend Warren. So, it's up to you. You can hit the reset button at any time. You can decide what life you want to live. You can build the life you want to have, or change parts of your life to have the life that you want. So I want to tell you a little story. I don't want to mess up the story, but how many have heard the tale of the Mexican fisherman? This is the last story I'm going to tell you. Only one guy? It's a good story. I don't want to mess it up, so here we go. A businessman was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large tuna. The business complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The businessman then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican said he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The businessman then asked, "What do you do with the rest of your time?" The fisherman then said, "I sleep late, I fish a little, I play with my kids, take a siesta with my wife Maria, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, senor." The businessman scoffed. "I'm a Harvard MBA, and I could help you. You could spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, you could buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. Eventually, we could have a fleet of fishing boats, and instead of selling your catch to a middleman, you could go directly to the processor and eventually open your own cannery. You would control the product, processing, and distribution. You would need to leave this small coastal village and move to Mexico City, and then LA, and eventually the great city of New York, where you would run your expanding enterprise." The Mexican fisherman asked, "But senor, how long will all this take?" To which the businessman replied, 15 to 20 years. "But what then, senor?" The businessman laughed and said, "That's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company stock to the public and become very rich. You would make millions. Millions, senor. Then what?" The businessman said, "Then you would retire. You would move to a small village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife Maria. Each evening, you'd stroll into town, sip wine, and play guitar with your amigos." The fisherman, still smiling, looked up and said, "But isn't that what I'm doing right now?" I guess my whole point in sharing this. Ever since my son's medical emergency and brain tumor, it gave me perspective to make choices in my life. I'm happier than I've ever been living the life I want to live, doing what I want to do. And someday at the end of our lives, wouldn't it be great to say, I'm glad I did, rather than I wish I had? Hopefully this has given you a couple of nuggets to take home with you. Michael, thank you for inviting me.